get into our topics here, you mentioned we were talking about the crowd atmosphere for that Bulls game, but we would be remiss to not mention the crowd atmosphere for that Indiana game. We haven't recorded since then. That was last Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. The Indiana Pacers came to town, and with that came the return of James Johnson. First off, I feel like people are forgetting that James Johnson did make another return to Sacramento.
The buzzer
Sacramento
beater
Kings
for
legend.
The buzzer beater against the Knicks forever.
You nailed it, Frank.
Forever.
Yes,
Forever.
absolutely. Real ones remember James Johnson, possibly the worst game winner I think I've ever seen.
Horrible.
Or at least the most sloppy. Like Isaiah drove down the baseline. It was just terrible.
It went off the side of the backboard.
And just disgusting.
He got his own rebound off the side of the backboard, and then he dished it out to John Salmons, who I think I think he might have missed. I don't know. James Johnson made his first three of the year at that point. Kings legend, but yes, as you mentioned, back in the building.
Yes, back in the building, James Johnson. But in all seriousness, it was the return of Tyrese Halliburton, former Sacramento Kings point guard, former number 12 pick in the 2020 NBA draft for the Sacramento Kings, as well as Buddy Hield, the Sacramento Kings all-time leading three-point shot maker. Buddy Hield. This title of this live stream is "I'm Not Your Friend, Buddy." That is, of course, a reference to South Park. I'm not your buddy guy. I'm not your guy friend. I'm not your friend, buddy. I'm not your buddy guy. For all those who don't know, please watch that clip.
Nailed it.
Yeah, I'm a big South Park guy. But yeah, Buddy Hield, man, oh man, was it a rough return for him in Sacramento. From the jump, while we should mention Tyrese Halliburton gets announced first, gets a standing ovation, cheers. That was totally expected. I mean, people love Tyrese. Even to this day, I think people would have rather seen Tyrese Halliburton in a Kings uniform than De'Aaron Fox. So that was totally expected for me. I'm assuming you kind of expected the same for Tyrese.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he's somebody that for sure has had some comments, which I know that's been kind of the talk of. When is he going to stop talking about it? When is he going to stop having these comments about it? And I think that the reception was still expected to be strong. Right. And when you look at the fact that he even opened up his reintroductory, it wasn't a press conference, but it was his media availability by saying his comments have been taken out of context over the past year and a half or so. Not year and a half, it's in February, right? It feels like it's been years. Over the past
this is 7 months, a long year, right?
His comments been taken out of context. He started with that to kind of throw maybe some water on any ill will, and it worked out because he got a standing ovation just seconds before Kings fans booed Buddy Hield, and it was the Marvin Bagley treatment, which we saw about a week and a half ago. Every time Buddy Hield touched the basketball last week, got booed. So that's a question I have for you. And it was a conversation that we were having, that night, the media, we were all talking about if it was warranted or not. Was that warranted? Was the booing for Buddy Hield deserved? And if it was deserved, why?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't understand. I've tried to kind of, get a gauge from a couple Kings fans that I know in my life of why they feel like Buddy Hield was booed. And really what I've gathered is it's just he didn't. I mean, Buddy never came out in a press conference and said, I don't want to be here. But it was a majority of just like vibes, essentially, of it felt like he wasn't giving his all. And, it really that's it. It just felt like he wasn't giving his all. And they felt like he didn't want to be there. But I mean, unless I'm mistaken, I don't ever remember Buddy Hield coming out and saying, I hate Sacramento, or I'm glad to be gone, or anything really to warrant booing.
It was quite the opposite. I mean, even after the game, he said, hey, I have nothing but respect for the organization and the fans. He said that he thought that the environment at Golden One Center was the best he's ever heard it, which I think that's honestly maybe a little bit pandering to the fans. But I mean, he was a part of an 18-19 team that had I'll say a similar kind of buzz to it, but nothing that met this level right now today. But he had some good comments to say after the game and said, I have no ill will towards the Kings, no ill will. I just like to play basketball. And that's pretty much who Buddy Hield always has been. But I will say that the booing probably comes from the fact that there were some instances where I think it was mostly around the time where he got moved to the bench, where Luke Walton moved him to the bench and Bogdan Bogdanovic was a starter. There was some comments he made and some like behind the scenes things where comments as far as Buddy Hield takes starting he takes to heart. Like I think he thinks it means something, and it does to him personally. It means something to him to be in the starting lineup. So he doesn't see himself really as a bench player, and I think he kind of went out on a sour note. And we know that trade with the Lakers fell through, and he was pretty excited about becoming a Laker, liking the jersey edits on Instagram and stuff like that. So when that happens, Buddy Hield, Marvin Bagley, they don't get the standing ovations that Tyrese Halliburton had.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that there's nuance in every situation, but it just feels like a slippery slope. Like there was a long time where just being a former Sacramento King would get you cheered regardless. It didn't even matter if you were good or what, if you were okay. Like Travis Outlaw would get a standing ovation.
Still probably would.
Jason Thompson, somebody who was not good by any stretch for the imagination, but was with the Kings for 8. I mean, is their all-time leading games played player, he's getting a standing ovation. It's just weird to me that Buddy, who, served admirably, if we want to act like this is like some military service, he definitely served his time. And to me, I mean, he is the lead, he was productive for somebody who was traded for a star player and could have, it could have been really sour. It could have been like a Marvin Bagley situation where it's like, okay, we kind of gave it all for this guy, for this piece. And then he, it's not like he sucked or was Nick Stauskas or something like that. And, he kind of turned his career around. He was really having a rough stretch to start his career in New Orleans and then came to Sacramento and really found his game. So I don't quite understand. And, I'm far from Buddy Hield's biggest supporter. I did not enjoy watching him on the team. I think he had his value, but especially once he was getting paid $20 million a year, it was just like, this guy is anchoring our roster right now.
That's what changed everything.
Those feelings. Yeah, I 100%. And I think that even was the start of like Buddy publicly starting to kind of
sour
a little bit. I remember he had that comment in the preseason where he was like, no one has ever said, hey, I want to go to Sacramento. Remember, he was like, no free agent has ever been like, oh yeah, like I'm going to Sacramento. Who's the biggest? I think he literally said, who is the biggest free agent Sacramento has ever gotten?
He did. He was in front
of quiet.
He was in front of the locker. The locker's talking to the media saying it was in the last preseason game, I think, when they were negotiating. Yeah, he said, who's the last big free agent signed with Sacramento? And I think he might even name Vlade, who he was negotiating with for a contract. So that was when things definitely went bad. Like what a tactic. Let's piss off the fan base before and then stay here.
Signing a
3-year deal,
whatever it was.
Yeah.
So I mean that's really the only explanation I can find for why Buddy got booed. But I thought that was very interesting. I personally probably wouldn't have booed him. But I don't think I would have cheered him either. But I just thought it was interesting. I mean, to your point that you made earlier, he got the Marvin Bagley treatment, and we know that the reasons why Marvin Bagley was booed. And it makes a lot more sense, in my opinion, why Marvin was booed. For Buddy to get booed the entire game with the same level of relentlessness in the first and in the fourth. I mean, I guess big ups to the Kings fans who keep that same energy, and like they really did. Keep that energy through the entire game. Like they did not wane from their boos at all. They were very confident in it.